Welcome back. Coinology. In the silence of a collector's table, under the reflection of a small desk lamp, a single copper-colored coin lies waiting to be discovered. It is small, almost unnoticeable, yet it carries within its metallic body a history that spans more than a century, a story that connects ordinary pockets with the dreams of collectors and the pulse of an entire nation. This is the story of the 2008 D1 cent coin, a humble piece of metal minted in Denver, that for some has become a window into America's economic heart and, for a few, a ticket to unimaginable fortune. The camera slowly closes in on the surface of the coin, where the worn face of Abraham Lincoln glows faintly under the light, and the narrator's voice begins to trace the lineage of this small artifact. In 2008, the United States was standing at the edge of a global financial shift. It was a year of economic uncertainty, yet the U.S. Mint continued its unbroken tradition of producing the Lincoln cent, a coin that had first entered circulation in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Nearly 100 years later, the 2008 D-cent was another chapter in that enduring legacy, the last full-year issue of the classic Lincoln Memorial reverse before history would change its design forever in 2009. Every detail of this coin tells a part of that story, from the letter D beneath the date that marks its birth in Denver, to the faint lines that sculpt the memorial on the reverse side, a miniature monument that has traveled through millions of hands since it was first engraved by Frank Gasparo decades earlier. The coin weighs 2.5 grams, a precise balance of copper-plated zinc. Its composition changed long ago from the heavy bronze alloy used in earlier decades. It measures 19.05 millimeters in diameter, small enough to rest on a fingertip yet crafted with engineering precision that speaks of machines calibrated to thousandths of an inch. The surface, when new, shines with a reddish luster that reflects the light of countless transactions, a coffee bought, a newspaper folded, a memory made. But beneath that everyday use lies a deeper story of design, art, and human intention. The symbol D on its front, often overlooked, quietly reveals the origin. The Denver Mint, a facility that has struck billions of coins yet remains a silent witness to the evolving face of American currency. As the narrator's voice drifts through the air, the scene transitions to the vast minting floor in Denver. The rhythmic thud of presses fills the room, a metallic heartbeat echoing through time. Each blank disc of zinc, washed in copper, slides into position, and with a single decisive strike, the image of Lincoln emerges. The machines hum with relentless precision, producing thousands of coins every minute. Somewhere in that flow, among the billions, a few pieces come out slightly different, a small misalignment, a double die, a tiny minting error invisible to the casual eye but life-changing for a dedicated collector. These rare imperfections, born out of mechanical chaos, are what sometimes transform a penny worth 1 cent into a treasure worth thousands, even millions. The 2008 D-cent, though modern and common, shares that same potential. In the right condition, under the right circumstances, it becomes a symbol of rarity and fortune. The documentary camera pans across collections displayed in glass cases. Shimmering proof coins reflect museum lighting, worn circulation coins whisper of everyday lives. The narrator continues, explaining how each year's minting tells a story not only of metal but of the nation's economic pulse. In 2008, as the financial crisis loomed, mintages of certain denominations fluctuated, reflecting changing demand. More than 2 billion Lincoln cents were struck at Denver that year, a staggering number, yet among them, certain examples, pristine, untouched, preserved in mint state, stand apart. Collectors hunt for them, grading them carefully, looking for perfection under magnification. Those perfect specimens, graded MS-68 or higher by professional services, become coveted prizes. And when rarity combines with flawless condition, the market responds with astonishing figures, sometimes tens of thousands, sometimes more. Rumors and auction tales of a unique specimen valued at $30 million have circulated, blending myth and possibility, keeping alive the belief that even the smallest coin can conceal unimaginable worth. The story of Lincoln's image on the cent is itself an American chronicle. In 1909, sculptor Victor David Brenner's portrait replaced the symbolic imagery that had previously decorated American coinage. It was a bold decision, the first real person ever depicted on a circulating U.S. coin. Lincoln's profile became not only a tribute to a president but a moral statement about unity and sacrifice. Nearly a century later, in 2008, that same face endured, still gazing to the right, its expression solemn yet steadfast. Around it, the familiar mottos, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and "The Date," framed the design, connecting every pocketful of change to ideals that had shaped a nation. The coin was small, but its symbolism was vast. The documentary voice softens as the lens shifts to the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial. For 50 years, this design had graced the cent, symbolizing both remembrance and resilience. Designed by Frank Gasparo and introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, the memorial reverse carried hidden artistry. If one looked closely, the tiny seated statue of Lincoln could be seen within the columns, a coin within a monument within a coin. By 2008, collectors already knew the end was near for this reverse. The following year, in 2009, the Mint would release 4 new designs celebrating Lincoln's life. Thus, the 2008 D-Cent stands as the final full-year production of the long-lived Memorial Reverse, making it a historical bridge between two eras of coinage. As the story unfolds, the narration turns introspective, exploring what it means for a 1-cent coin to be valued at millions. In truth, most 2008 D-Cents will never be worth more than their face value, yet the fascination persists because coins are more than currency, they are time capsules. Each carries the marks of an era, the economic decisions of a government, the artistry of engravers, and the fingerprints of countless lives. The few coins that reach mythical values do so not only because of rarity but because they connect people to discovery, to the thrill of finding history in the ordinary. That emotional current is what drives collectors to examine every cent, hoping to uncover the next great numismatic story. It is not only about wealth but about the pursuit of meaning through metal. The camera glides over archival footage, the Denver Mint under the cold blue sky of Colorado, its facade unchanging since the early 20th century. Inside, machines rumble, dies are replaced, technicians inspect freshly struck coins. Each 2008 D-Cent begins as a simple zinc blank coated in copper, heated, washed, dried, and then struck with 35 tons of pressure between hardened steel dies. In that instant, its surface becomes a landscape of ridges, microgrooves, and light-catching planes, all carrying the miniature sculpture of Lincoln's visage and the memorial behind him. It is mass production elevated to artistry, engineering fused with symbolism. When the coins tumble out of the press into massive bins, they are no longer mere metal discs, they have become silent witnesses to the economy, ready to travel through millions of transactions individually. These errors might fetch modest sums, but in rare combinations, pristine condition, perfect luster, dramatic doubling, they can command astonishing premiums at auction. A single flawless example, preserved since minting, might one day cross the block at a numismatic sale and ignite headlines claiming it sold for millions. And thus the legend grows, feeding the imagination of those who still believe a fortune can hide in plain sight. As the narrator's voice lowers, the camera pans to close-ups of collectors' hands wearing cotton gloves, delicately lifting coins under magnifying lenses. The light glints off copper surfaces as voices murmur in reverence. They discuss mint marks, grades, and population reports. How many coins survive in perfect condition? For the 2008 D-Cent, the population of high-grade specimens is relatively low compared to total mintage, making top-tier examples particularly desirable. Even a minor difference in grade MS67 versus MS68 can mean a leap in value from a few dollars to thousands. As the story deepens, the hum of the Denver Mint fades into the background and the narration lingers on the idea that every coin begins not as a finished work of art but as a blank canvas of potential. The 2008 D-Cent's journey starts in darkness, in the industrial stillness of a minting facility where molten metal is transformed into vast coils of zinc. The air is heavy with the smell of heated metal and machine oil. The coils are fed through powerful presses that punch out round blanks, tiny circles of promise, each soon to carry the weight of a nation's history. The blank discs, known as planchets, are washed, dried, and then plated with a thin layer of copper so uniform that even under a microscope it gleams like a newly polished mirror. At this stage, they are identical, anonymous, indistinguishable from billions of others, yet within that anonymity lies the paradox of coinage, the tension between the mass-produced and the one-of-a-kind. The narrator's voice slows, inviting the listener to imagine one of those blanks rolling off the conveyor, entering the press, and receiving the strike that transforms it into a coin. The dies descend with immense force, about 35 tons of pressure, and in that fraction of a second, the once blank surface becomes Lincoln's profile, sharp and defined, surrounded by words that have appeared on U.S. coinage for generations. The metal expands into the recesses of the die, capturing every detail, the subtle contour of Lincoln's cheek, the lines of his beard, the lettering of liberty and the date, the small D mint mark that situates it forever in Denver. The coin falls free, cooling rapidly, its surface now a frozen sculpture of art and mechanics intertwined. From here, the coins are counted, bagged, and distributed to Federal Reserve banks, ready to circulate through the bloodstream of commerce. Each one is supposed to be the same, but perfection is an illusion. In the fine dance between pressure, die wear, and timing, differences are born. This is where the science of minting intersects with the art of collecting. Collectors know that variation is the lifeblood of value. A tiny double impression on Lincoln's eye, a die crack across the memorial, an extra thickness in the lettering, these minute details, invisible to casual eyes, can transform a common cent into an object of fascination. The 2008 D-Cent has several known varieties. There are examples with doubling on the date, coins struck slightly off-center creating crescent-shaped rims, and rare pieces where the copper plating bubbles slightly due to heat during the strike. To a casual observer, they are imperfections. To a numismatist, they are stories etched in metal, each one recording the living process of creation. Every error is like a fingerprint, unique to a specific moment in the life of a die. The camera lingers on magnified surfaces under laboratory lights, revealing the micro-landscape of a coin's design. The fields shimmer like rolling plains, and the raised reliefs resemble mountains catching the sun. Under magnification, the engraved letters are not smooth but jagged, carved by the invisible power of metal under stress. These images serve as metaphors for the nation itself, imperfect yet enduring, scarred yet beautiful. The 2008 descent becomes a lens through which we see the craftsmanship, technology, and human labor behind something so seemingly trivial. The documentary voice reflects on how the U.S. Mint, one of the oldest institutions of the federal government, has balanced artistry and mass production for centuries, producing billions of coins every year while maintaining precision measured in microns. Beyond the mechanical story lies a more human one, the passion of those who chase coins. In homes across America and around the world, people keep jars of pennies, simple, everyday things. But for collectors, those jars are treasure chests waiting to be opened. They sift through rolls bought from banks, searching for anomalies. They learn to read light and shadow, to spot doubling in a blink, to distinguish between copper and zinc by the pitch of a coin dropped on a tabletop. It is a culture of patience, obsession, and hope. Some chase financial gain, others chase completion, trying to own one example of every year in mint mark since 1909. Yet all are bound by the same quiet thrill, the possibility of discovery. The narrator's tone turns reflective again, drawing connections between the collector's gaze and the broader history of the Lincoln cent. For nearly a century, this coin has outlived wars, depressions, cultural revolutions, and the rise of digital money. The 2008 D issue stands at a crossroads, minted in the shadow of the global financial crisis. It embodies the irony of value itself. While the world's markets collapsed, the mint kept striking 1-cent pieces whose material worth was less than their face value. Each cent cost about 1.26 cents to produce that year, a paradox of economics that demonstrated how symbolic money had become. In that contradiction, the 2008 descent tells a story not just of metal, but of faith that currency retains power because a nation believes it does. The screen transitions to slow-motion footage of coins tumbling, spinning in the air, colliding like stars in a miniature universe. The narrator continues, if one of these ordinary coins could be valued at $30 million, what would that say about rarity, desire, and myth? Numismatics, after all, is not only the study of coins but of the narratives we attach to them. History is filled with examples. The 1943 bronze cent, mistakenly struck in copper during the steel cent year, sold for over $1 million. The 1955 double die cent, with its ghostly twin lettering, turned a printing error into legend. These precedents keep alive the dream that somewhere, hidden in circulation, a 2008 descent of similar magnitude might exist, a piece so perfect, so unique, that it would rewrite the record books. Whether or not such a coin truly exists is less important than the hope it symbolizes. That hope is what fuels the stories of $30 million valuations whispered through collector communities and online forums. Every rumor, every sighting, every speculative auction listing adds another layer to the mythos. Now the documentary takes us into the grading rooms of professional certification agencies. Inside climate-controlled vaults, experts examine coins under high-powered microscopes. Each coin is judged for strike quality, luster, surface marks, and color. They assign a grade from 1 to 70, based on the Sheldon scale, where 70 represents absolute perfection, a coin that left the dies flawless and remained untouched by human hands. The 2008 D Lincoln cent, in grades of MS68 or MS69, can command serious attention. A hypothetical MS70, should it ever be verified, could drive collectors into frenzy. The voice reminds the viewer that value, at its core, is a story agreed upon by people, and in the numismatic world, that story is written in numbers, grades, and dreams. The narrative widens its lens to the symbolism of the Lincoln cent's design. Abraham Lincoln's portrait is not merely a depiction, it is a moral emblem. His calm, determined face became a visual shorthand for honesty, unity, and perseverance. When Victor David Brenner sculpted it in 1909, he captured not only the man but the myth, a leader who guided the country through its greatest trial. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial mirrors that legacy, standing as both architectural achievement and ideological monument. In 2008, the year before the design changed, this imagery carried a sense of farewell. It was the closing chapter of a half-century during which Americans had carried a piece of the memorial in their pockets. The following year, new designs would depict Lincoln's life from birth to presidency, but the 2008 D remains the final full-year memorial cent, a quiet end to an era. The camera lingers on the texture of the memorial on the coin's reverse, the fine lines between its columns, the tiny engraving of Lincoln seated inside. The narrator muses that it is almost poetic. Within a small copper circle lies a monument to the very man who appears on its obverse. A leader facing a memorial to himself, a symbol of reflection and continuity. This duality is what gives the cent its timeless power. Every time it changes hands, it connects people to a shared narrative of struggle, unity, and remembrance. As the film shifts into quieter tones, the voice returns to the human element of discovery. Somewhere, perhaps right now, someone holds a 2008 D cent in their palm, unaware of its potential significance. Perhaps it lies in an old collection, untouched since the day it left the mint, its luster still brilliant. Perhaps it hides in a roll of coins waiting at a small-town bank. The scene opens with the soft hum of turning pages, old coin albums being gently opened, their plastic sleeves gleaming under dim museum lighting. Rows of copper and zinc circles stretch across time, from the dark patina of early 20th century cents to the bright, lustrous finish of modern ones. The narrator's voice rises from the quiet, almost like a whisper carried across decades. The 2008 D Lincoln cent, it says, was not only the last of its kind but the closing breath of an era that had defined the visual identity of American small change for half a century. The following year, 2009, would mark a transformation, the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the centennial of the Lincoln cent itself. For collectors, this transition was monumental, the way a chapter closes in a book that has taken generations to write. The film slowly transitions from the minting floors of Denver to the design studios of the U.S. Mint, where artists and engravers begin sketching the future. The documentary tone deepens, describing how in 2009 the Mint introduced 4 new reverse designs, each chronicling a stage of Lincoln's life: his humble log cabin beginnings in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional and political development in Illinois, and his presidency in Washington, D.C. These coins were not just commemorative pieces, they were symbols of continuity, carrying forward the spirit of the cent while renewing its imagery for a new century. The 2008 D cent thus became a bridge, the last to bear the familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse, the one Americans had seen for 50 years. It is this position in history, this sense of closure, that gives the 2008 D its quiet mystique. The narrator's tone softens to a near murmur, the sound of gentle orchestral music beneath the voice. The Lincoln Memorial design, created by Frank Gasparo in 1959, had itself replaced Brenner's original Wheatyear's reverse. For half a century, it was the most reproduced architectural image in the world, appearing on tens of billions of coins. By 2008, it had become so familiar that people no longer saw it, it existed in the background of daily life, passing from hand to hand unnoticed. But for historians and numismatists, the last year of a design is never ordinary. The 2008 D is not rare in number, yet it is final, and finality has a power all its own. It is a quiet relic of a time that was about to change forever. The film cuts to a collector sitting at a wooden desk under warm lamplight, rotating a 2008 D cent under a magnifying lens. The copper glow reflects in his eyes. He explains softly that the thrill of collecting lies not in possession but in understanding how every scratch, every faint imperfection, tells a story. Some coins, he says, are born ordinary but die extraordinary. The narrator continues, in the world of coinage, legends grow from moments like these. A rumor begins, a whisper of a unique 2008 D cent struck with a rare die alignment, or one preserved in such perfect condition that experts call it flawless. From that whisper emerges a myth of incredible value, a coin said to be worth $30 million. Whether true or not, such stories endure because they speak to human longing, the dream that something so small and overlooked could conceal immeasurable worth. The camera lingers on high-speed footage of coins being inspected under microscopes, their surfaces glowing gold and red under white light. The narrator discusses the deeper concept of rarity. Rarity is not simply the absence of numbers, but the presence of distinction. A rare coin does not have to be unique, it only needs to be different enough to stand apart from billions of others. That difference can be microscopic: a doubled die, a misplaced mint mark, a strike so sharp that every ridge of Lincoln's coat appears in full relief. These details become the language of collectors, a coded conversation about the intersection of art and chance. For the 2008 D cent, such variations are the heartbeat of its legend. From there, the story turns philosophical. What does it mean, the narrator asks, for a 1-cent coin to be valued at $30 million? The number is not only a measure of market speculation but also a reflection of emotion. In a way, that valuation is symbolic, a metaphor for the idea that value itself is constructed by belief. Just as paper money derives worth from collective trust, so too does a rare coin draw its power from the stories told about it. The 2008 D cent, with its mythic price tag, becomes less a financial object and more a cultural artifact, a mirror reflecting how humans assign meaning to the mundane. As the film moves into quiet archival footage, the voiceover recounts how, during 2008, the world was experiencing financial turmoil. Banks failed, markets crashed, and currencies fluctuated wildly. Amid this uncertainty, a coin worth only a cent continued to circulate, stable, tangible, simple. People used it to buy gum, to make change, to drop into donation boxes. It represented constancy in a moment when larger systems were faltering. To hold a 2008 D cent was, unknowingly, to hold a symbol of resilience. Its copper sheen may have seemed trivial, but it carried a sense of trust that the smallest unit of value could still have meaning when everything else was unstable. In that light, the coin becomes more than money, it becomes memory. The documentary transitions to interviews with historians explaining how the Lincoln cent survived when many other denominations disappeared or changed materials. A half cent vanished in the 1850s, the large cent in 1857. Silver disappeared from dimes and quarters in the 1960s. Yet the penny endured, even when it cost more to make than it was worth. It survived not because of economic logic but because of cultural attachment. People were unwilling to part with the face of Lincoln, a man whose image had come to represent the moral fiber of the nation. This emotional continuity is what makes every Lincoln cent, including the 2008 D, more than mere currency. It is a national keepsake, a symbol of endurance. The narration deepens, exploring the artistry behind the coin. Brenner's original design of Lincoln was adapted from a portrait he had sculpted earlier, inspired by Lincoln's quiet strength and humanity. Over the years, minor adjustments were made to preserve its clarity as minting technology evolved, but the essence never changed. The 2008 D cent preserves that essence one last time before the redesign of 2009, the same gaze, the same solemn poise. It is both ancient and modern, a face that has looked back at Americans for generations. In that gaze lies something timeless, the reminder that even in an age of digital transactions, physical money connects us to our past. The documentary voice grows softer, reflective. In an era when payments are made with invisible signals, credit cards, apps, digital wallets, the penny seems archaic, a survivor of another age. Yet its continued existence anchors us. The 2008 D cent, in this sense, is both relic and revelation. It tells us that history still lives in our pockets, that the weight of a small coin can balance the vastness of time. The viewer is invited to imagine how many lives a single cent might have touched: the hands of a child buying candy, the cash drawer of a struggling shop, the tip jar of a musician, the soil of a wishing well. Each transaction leaves a trace, turning currency into shared experience. Then comes the scene of an auction house: bright lights, murmuring crowd, the sound of a gavel when the hammer falls, applause erupts. The narrator explains that even if it did not reach $30 million, the spectacle reveals something profound about the relationship between humans and their creations. The 2008 D Lincoln cent may be small, but it stands at a crossroads of technology, art, and identity. It is a product of industrial precision, yet it carries the fingerprints of craftsmanship. It was minted in a time of crisis, yet it endures as a symbol of continuity. Its alleged value of $30 million may seem fantastical, but it captures the essence of human imagination, the endless search for significance in the smallest things. The camera fades to darkness, leaving only the faint sound of a coin spinning and settling flat on wood. The narrator's final words for this segment echo softly: in the end, it is not about the number stamped upon it, but about the story it carries. The 2008 D cent reminds us that history is not distant or grand, it is tangible, held in the palm of our hand, a whisper of the past that continues to shine in the present. The faint echo of a spinning coin fades away, and the camera opens to the quiet glow of a collector's room late at night. A small lamp illuminates stacks of coin rolls, notebooks filled with scribbled numbers, and the soft reflection of copper gleaming from a glass display case. The narrator's voice returns, slow and reflective, carrying the rhythm of time itself. The 2008 D Lincoln cent, it says, is more than a coin, it is a survivor. In an age where physical money is slowly disappearing into the invisible flow of digital transactions, the penny still clings to life. Its endurance is a paradox, both practical and poetic, the smallest denomination of a vast economy that refuses to fade into history. As the story continues, the narration explores how the 21st century collector has evolved. Once, collectors gathered coins by traveling to banks, by trading with others at local shows, by hunting through pocket change. Today, entire collections are built through screens, online auctions, high-definition photographs, digital grading databases. Yet the emotional core remains unchanged. The search for the perfect coin is still a human pursuit, filled with anticipation and patience. When collectors speak of the 2008 D cent, their voices hold the same reverence once reserved for ancient silver or gold. They talk about its luster, its grade, its symbolism, and the quiet beauty of its design. Some call it the last memorial whisper, a coin that closed a long, proud chapter of American minting tradition. The film transitions to an aerial view of Denver, the Rocky Mountains standing silent in the distance, the mint building still operating beneath the same clear sky that has watched over it for more than a century. Inside, rows of presses continue to strike new coins, each one a descendant of that 2008 D cent. The narrator explains that every press in the mint is a carefully tuned orchestra of motion and sound. When the dies come together, they do so with perfect rhythm, ensuring that each impression carries the same sharp relief, the same texture of meaning. Yet even machines built for precision cannot eliminate randomness entirely. That randomness is the birthplace of rarity, the quiet accident that gives rise to legends. Somewhere within the billions of coins struck, perhaps one emerged slightly off-center, or with a doubled inscription, or with a tiny extra line across Lincoln's shoulder, a mark that transforms it from common to extraordinary. Those differences are what fuel the myth of the $30 million sent the camera pans to a numismatic laboratory. Technicians in white gloves examine coins under powerful microscopes. The light refracts across copper surfaces, revealing details invisible to the naked eye. One of them explains that modern grading technology now uses digital scanning, mapping the relief of a coin to a microscopic level. Each ridge, each contour, becomes data. In this digital world, coins can be catalogued with mathematical exactness, yet what drives collectors remains entirely emotional. They seek not just perfection but a story, a connection to the past, to Lincoln's legacy, to the idea that value can hide in the smallest object. The 2008 descent represents that intersection of precision and feeling, where machinery meets meaning. The narration slows again, moving into the broader philosophy of worth. The voice asks quietly, when does something stop being money and start becoming history? The answer, perhaps, lies in the moment people stop spending it. When a coin is pulled from circulation, placed in a folder, and labeled, it ceases to be currency and becomes a relic. That is what has happened to countless 2008 descents, preserved not because they are rare, but because they symbolize an ending. Collectors sensed it instinctively in 2008, they knew the memorial reverse would soon be gone. They saved rolls, boxes, entire mint sets, capturing the last year of a design that had been part of American life for half a century. Those hoards now sit in safes and drawers, waiting for a future generation to rediscover them. The scene changes to an older collector, his hands steady but worn, carefully turning a coin over under the light. He remembers being a child in the 1960s, when pennies were still heavy bronze and smelled faintly metallic. He speaks softly about how the sound of coins clinking in a pocket once meant security, the rhythm of daily life. The narrator connects his words to a larger theme, that coins are tactile anchors of memory. In an era of virtual balance sheets and flashing numbers on screens, the penny remains something you can hold, something real. The 2008 descent, though light and modern, still carries that old-world weight of presence. It's a link between generations, a bridge between tangible and digital value. Now the film moves toward the economics of collecting. Experts discuss how markets assign prices to coins based on condition, rarity, and demand. The narrator explains that while the average 2008 descent might still be worth 1 cent, the highest graded examples, those in immaculate condition, untouched by circulation, can command thousands. Auction houses compete for them, driven by the allure of perfection. Yet behind every headline price lies the same universal truth: value is created by belief. A coin is worth what someone is willing to pay for it, and belief itself can be powerful enough to turn metal into legend. This is how the myth of the $30 million penny endures. It's not a hoax or fantasy, it's a symbol of faith and discovery, faith that hidden treasures still exist in the ordinary. The narrator's voice grows contemplative. As the world debates whether to abolish the penny altogether, the 2008 descent becomes a symbol of resistance, the last echo of an idea that small things matter. Governments argue about cost efficiency, economists calculate the waste of minting coins whose metal exceeds their face value. Yet for millions, the penny is personal. It is the first coin a child learns to recognize, the coin tossed into fountains for wishes, pressed into keepsakes, saved in jars, or handed to charity. It may be nearly obsolete in commerce, but it remains alive in culture. The 2008 descent, standing at the edge of that decline, becomes almost poetic, a coin minted in an age of uncertainty that now serves as a reminder of permanence. Footage cuts to schools, libraries, old shops, small-town diners, places where pennies still trade hands. The narrator describes how each coin tells a story that outlives the people who used it. A single 2008 descent could have traveled through thousands of hands, across cities and decades. It could have been dropped, lost, found, and pocketed again. It could have paid part of a meal, sat forgotten in a drawer, or been pressed into a collection book. Every path is unique. Multiply the journey by billions, and you see not a currency, but a living chronicle of human life. The orchestral score swells as the documentary grows more philosophical. The camera returns to the face of Lincoln on the coin. His expression, carved more than a century ago, still looks forward with quiet resolve. The light catches his cheek, his eyes, the curve of his coat. The narrator reminds the viewer that Lincoln's presence on the cent is not accidental. It was a statement that honesty, humility, and unity should be at the heart of everyday exchange. To hold a Lincoln cent, any cent, is to hold a symbol of those ideals. The 2008 descent preserves that image one last time before change arrived. In that sense, it is not just a coin, but a message cast in metal, a farewell note from one era to the next. The voice softens once more, almost to a whisper. Somewhere out there, perhaps in a forgotten jar of change, lies a coin with the perfect strike, flawless luster, untouched since the moment it left the press. Maybe it has a subtle error, an unseen doubling, a hidden mark that will one day make it the centerpiece of a collector's dream. Perhaps it is that mythical $30 million cent, waiting patiently for discovery. Whether or not anyone ever finds it, the idea itself keeps people looking, keeps curiosity alive. That, the narrator says, is the true value of the 2008 D cent, not its metal, not its grade, but the endless wonder it inspires. The music fades into silence, leaving only the faint ticking of a clock and the glint of copper under soft light. The narrator's final words for this part linger gently. The penny endures because it reminds us of the weight of small things, of history that fits between our fingers, of the beauty hidden in the ordinary. The 2008 D Lincoln cent is a whisper from the past, a promise from the present, and perhaps, in its own quiet way, a message to the future that even the smallest coin can carry the story of a nation. The story moves onward, deeper into the quiet heart of what the 2008 D cent truly represents. The screen fades from darkness to the slow, deliberate motion of a mint worker adjusting a steel die beneath a massive press. The narrator's voice returns, measured, steady, echoing like thought itself. Each strike, each movement, it says, is a reminder of how value is created. A blank copper-plated disc enters the chamber, two halves of a die descend, and in an instant, an image is born: the face of Abraham Lincoln, the memorial behind him, and the small letter D beneath the date 2008. A tiny symbol of origin, yet one that defines identity. The D stands not merely for Denver but for durability, for detail, for a mint whose precision has echoed through more than a century of American coinage. The narrator continues, reflecting on how the Denver Mint itself stands as a testament to industrial artistry. It was founded in an era when the United States was expanding westward, when the Rocky Mountains were still symbols of untamed promise. The coins struck there have always carried a certain ruggedness, a character shaped by the landscape around them. The 2008 D cent, like those before it, embodies that mixture of refinement and frontier spirit, a coin that feels both engineered and alive. Its weight, precisely 2.5 grams, seems insignificant until you remember that billions were produced, together forming thousands of tons of metal representing the smallest measurable fraction of the nation's economy. Every one of those grams carries the imprint of intention. The scene widens to show molten copper being poured, glowing bright orange before cooling into endless strips. Machines feed the metal through rollers, cutting thousands of perfect blanks. The rhythm of the process feels hypnotic, like a mechanical heartbeat. The narrator reminds the audience that each blank, each cent, is born of transformation, metal extracted from earth, refined by fire, shaped by pressure. In that transformation lies the deeper metaphor of money itself, the conversion of raw material into trust. Every coin is a small agreement between people, a promise that this piece of metal means something, that it can carry value across space and time. The film slows again, focusing on a single coin leaving the press, still warm, still gleaming. It falls into a pile of others, indistinguishable, yet somewhere within that pile may lie a story waiting to be told. The 2008 D cent might seem ordinary, but the extraordinary always hides within the ordinary. Collectors know this. They search tirelessly because every once in a while, the minting process creates an anomaly, a misalignment, a doubled die, a strike through grease, an unexpected flaw. To most, it's a mistake. To a numismatist, it's an event, a fingerprint of chance frozen in metal. These rare variations are what fuel the imagination. They remind people that even in the most controlled systems, imperfection breathes life. The narrator's tone deepens, weaving between fact and reflection. In 2008, the world was shifting. Economies trembled, markets crashed, and people questioned the stability of value itself. Yet in the midst of that uncertainty, the mint continued its quiet rhythm, striking billions of cents. It was almost poetic. As great institutions faltered, the hum of coin presses carried on. Each penny, no matter how small, symbolized resilience. The 2008 D cent became, unknowingly, a witness to history, struck in the same year when the global economy was redefined. It carried the image of Lincoln, a leader who had guided the nation through its darkest trials, appearing again in an era of struggle, reminding the people who handled it that endurance is part of identity. The camera glides over drawers of coins, each sealed in transparent holders. Labels read 2008 D Lincoln cent, MS68RD. The narrator describes the grading system in patient detail, how experts evaluate the coin's surface, strike, color, and luster. Mint state, proof, red, brown, and everything in between. The scale is a language of perfection, a way of measuring time's absence. A perfect coin, untouched since birth, becomes a relic of the moment it was made. When one such example sells for tens of thousands at auction, it's not because of its material, but because it is one of the few that have escaped the fate of circulation. It's as if the coin itself has been preserved outside the normal flow of history, frozen at the moment of its creation. The music swells as the film transitions to a broader view of global currency. The narrator explains that every nation tells its story through its money. Some display monuments, others depict wildlife, leaders, or philosophies. America chose Lincoln for the smallest coin, a decision that says something profound. It's a declaration that greatness need not reside only in the grand or expensive. The smallest denomination bears the face of the man who preserved the Union. That, the narrator notes, is democracy cast in metal, the belief that every contribution, however small, matters. And so the 2008 cent, though worth only 1 cent in commerce, carries a measurable symbolic weight. The film slows, returning to collectors around the world, a man in Tokyo examining his US cent set, a woman in London holding a 2008 D in a magnifier, a young boy in Texas opening a roll from the bank. Across languages and borders, the Lincoln cent connects people who will never meet, joined by a shared curiosity. This is what gives numismatics its quiet power. It is not merely about wealth or rarity, but about continuity. To collect a coin is to rescue it from oblivion, to ensure its story continues. In that act, collectors become archivists of civilization. Now the documentary shifts tone again, more introspective. The narrator asks the viewer to imagine finding a single coin that changes everything, a 2008 D cent with an unrecorded variety, a unique error, a microscopic difference invisible to most. At first glance, it's just another penny, but under the right light, it reveals something unseen. In that moment, value ceases to be numerical and becomes emotional. The discovery itself is worth more than the price. That is the essence of collecting, the thrill of noticing what others overlook, of finding wonder in what billions have ignored. Somewhere, perhaps in a drawer or a forgotten coin jar, one such cent might still lie hidden, waiting to rewrite its own worth. The screen fades to an image of the Denver Mint at dusk. The narrator speaks softly of legacy, of how every mint mark, every design, every tiny detail is part of a lineage stretching back generations. The 2008 D cent stands near the end of a design era that began in 1959, and with its passing came reflection. The following year, the Lincoln bicentennial cents would arrive, each bearing a new reverse celebrating moments from his life. Yet the 2008 D remained the last to carry the familiar memorial, the final iteration of a half-century tradition. That alone gives it a quiet dignity. It is not just another penny, it is a closing chapter, a final note before transition. The orchestra grows quieter as the camera lingers on the Lincoln Memorial design. The narrator points out the fine lines of the columns, the tiny figure of Lincoln seated within, barely visible to the naked eye, a sculptural echo within a sculpture, a portrait within a portrait. This detail, invisible to most, has fascinated collectors for decades. It demonstrates the craftsmanship and symbolism woven into even the smallest pieces of currency. In a sense, the 2008 D cent carries Lincoln twice, once in profile, once in spirit, forever bound within a coin that was never meant to last so long, yet has endured beyond expectation. As the music softens, the narrator reflects on the strange paradox of permanence and decay. Metal wears down, luster fades, yet meaning persists. The camera pulls back to reveal shelves lined with history, coins of every age and metal, each one a fragment of civilization's story. And among them, resting in its place, is the 2008 D Lincoln cent, gleaming softly beneath the light, silent yet eloquent. The narrator concludes that as long as there are people who remember, who collect, who care to look closely at what others overlook, the penny will never truly vanish. It will remain as it has always been, humble, enduring, and quietly magnificent. The scene opens in near silence, the camera gliding slowly over a modern city at night. Neon light spills across empty streets, card readers blink at storefronts, phones glow in the hands of passers-by. The narrator's voice enters softly, reflective, a whisper layered over the hum of the city. Money has become invisible, it says. Numbers flow through satellites and servers, transferring value at the speed of thought. Yet even in this world of instant exchange, a small copper coin still holds power. The 2008 D Lincoln cent, once a routine artifact of daily life, now feels like an anchor to something human, a tactile reminder that value once had weight and texture. The film moves into a series of images, a vending machine rejecting coins, a child learning to count change, a collector flipping a penny in the palm of his hand. The narrator explains that the transition to digital currency is not just technological, it is emotional. People are slowly losing contact with the physical symbols that once taught them the meaning of value. The 2008 D cent survives as an object of touch, sound, and sight. When you drop it on a table, you hear its small metallic ring. When you hold it under light, you see how its copper surface deepens from orange to red to brown. That sensory memory is irreplaceable. It is not simply nostalgia, it is part of the human experience of exchange. Now the camera focuses on a historian surrounded by shelves of economic journals. He speaks quietly, explaining how civilizations have always used objects to represent trust. From shells to silver, from paper to pixels, each step forward has come with the risk of forgetting the origin of value, human agreement. The 2008 D cent, struck in the last year before the Lincoln design changed, reminds us of that origin. It is a relic from the moment before money became code. The narrator ties this thought to Lincoln himself, whose leadership was grounded in unity and faith in people. To carry his image on the smallest coin is to carry a reminder that nations are built not on numbers but on shared belief. A slow montage shows coins resting in drawers, museum cases, and dusty jars. The narrator's tone grows warmer. Somewhere, perhaps in a child's collection, a 2008 cent gleams a little brighter than the rest. It may never be rare in the traditional sense, yet it possesses something rarer still: context. It represents the closing of one story and the uncertain beginning of another. When future generations look back, they may see the coin not as a piece of commerce but as a symbol of transition, one of the last widely used objects to carry both art and utility in a single circle of metal. The film turns to the psychology of collecting. The narrator explains that collectors are not hoarders of metal, they are storytellers. Every coin they save becomes a chapter rescued from oblivion. The 2008 cent appears again and again in their albums because it marks a boundary, the final year before redesign, the echo of the memorial, the twilight before change. In this way, it satisfies a deep human desire to hold on to endings. People preserve what they fear to lose: beauty, meaning, identity. To collect a penny is to collect time itself, and the imagery shifts to a classroom where a teacher hands a student a bright coin. The narrator's voice softens, almost hopeful. She explains that money once taught generations how to measure, how to give, how to save. That lesson still matters. When a young person learns the value of a single cent, they are learning patience and awareness. They are learning that abundance begins with the smallest unit. The 2008 cent, sitting lightly in a palm, becomes an instrument of education, a quiet teacher that asks us to see significance in simplicity. The music swells slightly as the film expands to a global view, markets opening, data streams flowing, digital charts pulsing with light. The narrator contrasts this immaterial world with the enduring solidity of the penny. It reminds us that even as we create virtual wealth, we still crave something real to represent it. Economists can debate efficiency, but emotion cannot be calculated. The desire to hold a coin, to feel its edges, to watch it catch light, that desire anchors us to our own history. Next, the documentary explores the artistry of coinage. A designer appears at his drafting table, sketching the familiar outline of Lincoln's profile. He explains how each curve and shadow must convey dignity and humanity within a tiny space. The narrator connects his words to a larger idea, that coins are miniature sculptures circulating through everyday life, carrying art into millions of pockets. The 2008 cent is one of the last mass-produced artworks still recognized by nearly every American. It is an egalitarian masterpiece, free to all, belonging to none, yet shared by everyone. The light dims again, showing a row of automated cash counters clicking rhythmically. The narrator speaks of time. Every machine counts what once passed hand to hand, unaware of the stories behind each coin. Among those countless movements, the 2008 cent keeps whispering its lesson, that permanence is not found in systems but in symbols. When economies fail, when currencies change, symbols remain. The Lincoln cent, struck billions of times, carries an image that has survived wars, depressions, and technological revolutions. It endures because it belongs to memory, not merely to trade. A brief stillness follows. The camera settles on the worn steps of the actual Lincoln Memorial, its marble glowing under twilight. The narrator connects the monument and the coin, two reflections of the same idea. One is vast, the other tiny, yet both were built to honor principles that outlast circumstance. The memorial's image on the reverse of the 2008 cent was more than architectural, it was moral. It turned a monument into a metaphor for unity. When that design ended, the nation did not lose a symbol but passed it into legend, preserved forever in the billions of coins already scattered across the earth. The score turns gentle again. The narrator wonders aloud what will happen to pennies in the future. Will they disappear entirely? Will digital money erase them, or will they return as collectibles, artifacts in a museum of everyday life? Perhaps both. Some will melt, some will endure, and a few will rest in the hands of those who understand what they mean. When the last penny is finally struck, the 2008 cent will remain one of the final witnesses of a tangible past. The music fades to a single sustained note. The narrator concludes this segment quietly, almost like a prayer. In a world that moves faster every year, the penny reminds us to slow down, to notice detail, to appreciate craft, to remember history. The 2008 Lincoln cent is not just an object of metal, it is a mirror of civilization. It tells us who we were, who we became, and perhaps who we still hope to be. Long after digital balances replace pocket change, the image of Lincoln will endure in that small circle of copper, waiting to be found, reminding whoever holds it that even the smallest things can carry the greatest meaning. The picture opens on a morning sky over Denver. Sunlight touches the roof of the mint, and the sound of distant machinery hums like a pulse beneath the city. The narrator's voice returns, gentle and steady. Every day, he says, people walk past this building without realizing that history still breathes inside it. Long after the great events of 2008 have faded from headlines, the presses still move, striking new coins for a new age. And yet, among all the metal that leaves this place, the 2008 cent remains a special echo, one of the last of its line, still finding its way through time. The film cuts to homes and small shops across America. A cashier opens a till, a handful of pennies glints under fluorescent light. A child empties a jar of change, giggling as coins roll across the floor. Somewhere in that small chaos may lie one piece struck in that final year of the memorial reverse. The narrator explains that what once seemed common has slowly become remarkable. Every year, more pennies vanish from circulation, lost, melted, or forgotten. The ones that survive become accidental ambassadors of memory. Collectors have taken on the quiet work of preservation. The camera follows one of them, an older man sitting by a window, a magnifier looped around his neck, rows of labeled flips before him. He slides a coin beneath the lens. The image magnifies until Lincoln's face fills the screen, every ridge and groove glowing under the light. The narrator describes how collectors record each variety, weight, and surface tone. The numbers 2.5 grams, 19 millimeters may sound technical, but for them they are poetry. Each measurement confirms that the coin is genuine, part of a lineage stretching back more than a century. The voice softens as the camera drifts over notebooks filled with handwriting. Some entries are precise, others personal. A note beside one 2008 cent reads simply, found in change, 2015. The narrator muses that every coin like this carries a trace of its finder, a story invisible yet real. In museums, curators speak of provenance, the history of ownership. But for a penny, provenance is life itself, a record of passing through countless hands, of being part of countless quiet moments. That is what gives the 2008 cent its humanity. Now the screen fills with faces, a young woman cataloging her father's collection, a boy swapping coins at a local club, a historian arranging displays in a glass case. Across generations, the penny becomes a bridge. The narrator explains that numismatics is not merely about rarity, it is about continuity. To hold a 2008 cent is to participate in a story that began long before and will continue long after. Every collector, knowingly or not, becomes a guardian of collective memory. The scene changes to a high-tech storage vault where coins are kept in climate-controlled trays. A curator opens a drawer, revealing perfect red cents gleaming as if struck yesterday. The narrator reflects that preservation is both science and faith. Air, humidity, even fingerprints can alter a surface forever, so each coin is sealed away from time. Yet the act of sealing it also separates it from life. There is irony in that the more perfectly a coin is preserved, the less of the world it touches. Still, without these efforts, the physical trace of history would vanish. The 2008 cent survives because people choose to protect it. Music rises softly as the camera shows a small coin show in a community hall. Tables stretch from wall to wall, covered in cases, lights, and magnifiers. Voices murmur, hands trade, stories flow. Here, the penny is not forgotten. It is examined, discussed, admired. One collector tells another about a near-perfect strike found in an unsearched roll. Another recalls paying only a few cents for a piece that later graded among the finest known. The narrator notes that markets may come and go, prices may rise and fall, but the spirit of discovery endures. This is what keeps the legend of the $30 million penny alive, not greed, but curiosity, the eternal hope that something extraordinary still hides within the ordinary. The film slows to quiet images of people photographing coins with phones, uploading pictures to online archives. Technology has changed collecting, too. What once lived in private albums now circulates through digital galleries. The narrator suggests that this new sharing creates an unexpected symmetry. Just as the penny once passed physically through millions of hands, its image now passes virtually through millions of screens. The story continues, transformed but unbroken. A sequence follows of teachers, museum guides, and hobbyists explaining coins to children. The narrator's tone turns warm. Education, he says, is the true legacy of these objects. Each coin is a tool for teaching patience, observation, and respect for craftsmanship. When a child tilts a penny under light and notices Lincoln's tiny memorial between the columns, they are not only learning about design, they are learning how to see. The 2008 descent invites that first spark of awareness, that moment when the small becomes meaningful. The music deepens into a gentle piano theme as the camera returns to the Denver Mint at twilight. The narrator speaks of continuity again. Decades from now, when digital money dominates completely, these coins will remain as the fingerprints of an age that still believed in touch. They will sit in drawers, museums, and memory boxes, outliving the technologies that replaced them. And perhaps, he muses, that is why people keep them, not for profit, but for reassurance. To know that something tangible, something simple, can still exist in a world of abstraction. The final images of this segment show a family gathering around a kitchen table, sorting through coins. They laugh softly, passing pieces back and forth, comparing dates. The camera lingers on a single 2008 cent resting in a child's hand, light glinting on its surface. The narrator closes this part with a quiet truth, that the worth of the penny is measured not in dollars, not even in millions, but in the attention it invites. It asks us to look closely, to remember, to connect. The 2008 Lincoln cent endures because it reminds us that history is not locked away in museums, it is scattered across our lives, waiting to be noticed. Night settles over the city. Streetlights glow, and the camera glides along a line of passing cars, their tires hissing softly against wet pavement. Somewhere in one of those cars, a handful of coins rattles inside a cup holder. The narrator's voice returns, slow and thoughtful. He says that every coin, even the smallest, continues to move when the people who once held it are gone. It travels across years and lives, gathering invisible stories. The 2008 descent, he explains, carries a whisper from a turbulent decade into a calmer future, like a survivor that refuses to vanish. The image shifts to the Denver Mint once more, now viewed through security glass and silent corridors. Machines rest under dim lights, the day's production has ended. The narrator recalls how, during the year of its minting, millions of cents were struck with precision, each one part of a system so vast that individuality seemed impossible. And yet time has proven that individuality was there all along. A slight misstrike, a trace of die wear, a subtle toning marks that make one coin different from another. In these microscopic variations lies the humanity of mass production. As the story unfolds, the film drifts into the philosophy of value. Economists once declared that the cent had lost its purpose. Its purchasing power had dwindled, its production cost had surpassed its face value, and governments debated whether to end it altogether. But the narrator suggests that money is not only arithmetic, it is memory. The penny's persistence reveals a collective reluctance to let go of something familiar. When people glance at Lincoln's face, they see not only a president but a symbol of endurance through conflict, of the belief that unity and small efforts still matter. The camera cuts to a slow pan of landscapes, wheat fields under wind, city skylines, mountain snow. Across these scenes, the voice continues, the 2008 cent may weigh only 2.5 grams, but in that sliver of metal lies a mirror of a nation. The copper surface holds the color of the land, the zinc beneath carries the resilience of its industry. Every cent is a fragment of geography, pressed into circulation like a moving artifact. When it changes hands, a little piece of that geography moves too. Now we see an elderly woman paying for her morning coffee with exact change. The barista smiles, drops the penny into the register, and the sound echoes slightly. That small metallic click is the heartbeat of ordinary life, the rhythm of exchange. The narrator reflects that historians often chase grand events, but it is the repetition of small gestures, the giving and receiving of a cent, that builds the texture of civilization. The 2008 cent becomes a symbol of continuity between invisible moments. The music softens. The film shows hands of different ages passing coins across generations. The narrator notes that these coins survive because people care enough to look closer. Collecting is, in its deepest sense, an act of gratitude, a way of acknowledging that time leaves traces worth preserving. The collector does not merely hoard metal, he gathers fragments of shared experience. In that light, the story of the 2008 cent is not about money at all. It is about the endurance of meaning in a disposable age. Images of museums follow, display cases gleaming under spotlights, visitors leaning in to read small plaques. The camera focuses on the polished surface of a 2008 specimen graded in perfect condition. The narrator describes how experts study light angles, strike sharpness, luster, and die alignment, treating each detail as a clue. The pursuit is meticulous, almost devotional. To those who study coins, beauty resides in precision, the crisp edge of a rim, the balanced relief of a portrait. Such beauty, measured in microns, speaks to the larger idea that order and craftsmanship can still exist in a noisy world. As the film deepens, the narrator wonders aloud how future generations will interpret these artifacts. Will they see them as quaint curiosities from a vanished economy? Or will they recognize them as evidence that people once cared about the tangible? The camera shows children examining a coin under magnification, their reflections shining on the glass. They giggle at how large Lincoln's face becomes, how clearly the tiny letters read, "In God We Trust." Through their wonder, the story renews itself. The scene fades into a quiet montage of digital transactions, contactless payments, online transfers, currencies without shape. The narrator's tone lowers. The world is moving toward invisibility, he says, money that has no weight, no texture, no sound. Yet precisely because of that shift, objects like the 2008 cent gain a new kind of value. They become relics of physical trust, reminders of when value could be held, touched, and heard. In a world of silent numbers, the faint ring of a penny falling onto wood feels almost sacred. The imagery grows poetic, coins submerged in water glinting under sunlight, a slow-motion shot of 1 cent spinning on a tabletop before coming to rest. The voiceover reflects that every spin mirrors the uncertainty of worth, a dance between chance and intention. No one knows which coin will end up treasured, which will be forgotten. The $30 million legend surrounding the rare 2008 cent is not a guarantee, it is a metaphor for hope. It reminds people that extraordinary stories can hide in ordinary things. The music swells slightly as the narrator ties the threads together. He says that the 2008 Lincoln cent endures because it occupies a space between history and myth. It is both a document of its time and a vessel for imagination. It teaches that value is not fixed, it is created by attention, by the act of seeing significance where others see none. In that sense, every coin that passes through a hand has potential to become a story, a memory, a lesson, even a miracle of luck. The camera returns one final time to Denver's skyline at dawn. Light strikes the mint's walls, the same light that once gleamed on the first copper coins of the 19th century. The narrator concludes softly that the mint is not merely a factory but a monument to continuity. From copper to zinc, from labor to legend, the cent connects centuries. The 2008 struck in the final days before a new design, stands as a threshold, the end of one story and the quiet beginning of another. The final image fades to black as the music lingers. The voice pauses, then whispers the closing thought for this part, that worth, in the end, is not what the market declares but what memory sustains. A penny, however small, becomes priceless when it teaches us to see time itself pressed into metal. That is the true inheritance of the 2008 Lincoln cent, a lesson that every small thing can hold an entire world. The film opens in silence. A slow-motion shot of a single coin falling through air, spinning, catching the faint light before landing softly on a wooden surface. The camera lingers. The narrator begins quietly, almost as if speaking to himself. He says that in every culture, people have looked for symbols of permanence, stones, statues, written words, monuments of steel and glass. Yet sometimes, the most enduring symbols are the smallest and most fragile. A coin, meant to circulate, meant to wear away, becomes an unintentional time capsule. It holds within it not only an image of a leader, but a belief in continuity itself. The 2008 D. Lincoln cent, born in an era of uncertainty, stands as one of those symbols. The scene shifts to an empty desk where sunlight filters through a curtain. A hand enters the frame and places a penny on the table. The voice continues, that coin may be worth only 1 cent in commerce, but its true value cannot be counted in dollars or decimals. It is the witness of hands, the echo of exchange, the physical record of a nation's trust in itself. To understand that, the narrator says, one must think beyond economics. One must think about what humans need to believe in order for society to exist at all. The screen fills with images of ancient coins, Greek drachmas, Roman denarii, medieval florins. The narrator explains that every civilization, no matter how distant in time, has minted its image into metal. It was never only about trade, it was about presence. To strike a face onto a coin was to declare that the society believed in order, in shared value, in something that would outlast the individual. The 2008 D cent belongs to that same ancient lineage. Though produced in a digital age, its essence is archaic, a promise made visible, a guarantee embodied in copper and zinc. The film moves now to a montage of people, a farmer paying for seed, a teacher giving change at a bake sale, a traveler buying coffee in a distant city. The narrator speaks softly over these moments. Every coin has a life made of these brief interactions. Each transaction is a thread, and together those threads weave the invisible fabric of society. To hold a coin is to hold a fragment of that fabric, a symbol that we trust one another enough to keep the system turning. In that trust lies the deeper meaning of value. Music enters, a low, resonant cello. The images grow darker, showing coins corroded by time, green with age, found in soil or resting beneath water. The narrator says that even when a coin is lost, its existence continues. Archaeologists dig them from the earth centuries later, and in that moment, they recover not wealth, but connection. The soil gives back evidence that people once worked, traded, and dreamed in the same places we walk now. The 2008 cent, he continues, may one day be such a relic. It may be uncovered by someone who wonders what kind of world existed when it was made. And in that moment, it will tell a story not of commerce, but of belief. A wide shot reveals a river of molten metal pouring through industrial molds, a recreation of minting in progress. The narrator describes how each cent begins as a blank planchet, heated, pressed, and transformed under immense pressure. He likens that process to human life itself. We, too, are shaped by heat and pressure, by the events that strike us, leaving impressions that define who we are. The portrait on the coin, he says, is not merely Lincoln's, it is a reflection of everyone who endures struggle and emerges changed. The imagery becomes poetic again, the faces of workers, historians, children, and elders dissolve one into another. The narrator's tone deepens. He says that the true miracle of the penny is that it equalizes all who touch it. In the hand of a billionaire or a child, its value remains the same. It does not discriminate, it does not lie. It travels freely, serving each person without memory or judgment. In that way, it embodies a kind of quiet democracy, a metal reflection of the principle Lincoln himself cherished, equality of worth. The screen now shows the inscription, "In God we trust," magnified until it fills the frame. The narrator pauses. Those words, he says, have outlived every design change and every economic debate. They remain not as an assertion of doctrine but as a reminder of humility, a recognition that even the most rational systems of trade rely on faith. Every time a coin changes hands, there is faith that the next person will honor it, that society will remember its meaning. Without that trust, even gold would become worthless. The film cuts to black and white photographs of 2008, headlines, protests, economic collapse, recovery. The voice grows contemplative. When these coins were minted, the world was trembling. Markets fell, institutions wavered, people questioned permanence itself. And yet, even then, the presses kept moving. The 2008 D cent became a silent reassurance that order continued, that the rhythm of making, giving, and receiving had not broken. It was not wealth that sustained hope, but the persistence of ordinary acts, the hum of the mint, the shine of a fresh coin, the sound of small change. And now, the music changes to a softer piano line. The camera returns to the hand from the beginning, the same penny resting on the same table. Time has passed. The light outside the window has shifted. The narrator says that perhaps the reason humans hold on to coins long after they cease to be practical is that they are reminders of presence. A coin carries weight. It occupies space. It has edges, texture, reflection. It grounds us in the tangible. In an age when everything becomes light, wireless, and instant, the physical coin whispers, "I exist. I endure." The film drifts through scenes of night markets, subway stations, and quiet kitchens, each with the faint glimmer of a penny somewhere within. The narrator tells us that this is the spiritual heart of the story, not the price tag or the myth of $30 million, but the lesson that value arises from attention. To notice the small is to honor the whole. When someone bends down to pick up a penny, they are not just saving a coin, they are reaffirming that nothing is too insignificant to matter. The sequence closes on an image of the earth seen from space, slowly rotating in darkness. The narrator's voice is almost a whisper. He says that if someone could look closely enough, perhaps somewhere on that vast planet, a single 2008 D cent is lying on a street, glinting under a lamplight. It is still doing what it was meant to do, reflecting light, marking exchange, holding history. And though its market worth might be trivial, its symbolic worth is infinite. Because it proves that meaning, once struck, can survive beyond those who created it. The music fades, leaving only the faint hum of wind. The narrator ends the segment with a single, quiet thought: the world may measure value by numbers, but the heart measures it by memory. And so, even a 1 cent coin can become a mirror for all that is enduring in us, our need to create, to remember, and to believe that something small can still hold the weight of time. Dawn breaks once more over the city. The first light of morning drifts across rooftops, through quiet streets, over the faint hum of a world just beginning to move again. The camera rises slowly above the Denver Mint, the same building that has appeared throughout the film, now bathed in gold. The narrator's voice returns, calm and reflective. He says that every story must find its ending, but endings are never final, they are only pauses in a longer rhythm. The story of the 2008 D Lincoln cent began in noise and fire, in the strike of metal against die, in the heartbeat of machines. But it ends in silence, in the quiet realization that what was once common has become a messenger of memory. The camera moves into the mint's interior, where freshly struck coins pour down shining chutes into waiting containers. The narrator describes the scene with reverence. Each coin, identical yet unique, falls with a soft metallic rain. Billions of small suns catching the light for a fraction of a second before joining the flow. They leave the mint by the millions, scattered across the continent, carried in trucks, in wallets, in pockets. Some will vanish almost instantly, forgotten in drawers or lost beneath car seats. Others will begin journeys that last decades, crossing cities, states, and generations. Among them, one coin may one day be discovered, its condition perfect, its detail flawless, its story astonishing, the legendary $30 million cent that captures the world's imagination. But the narrator reminds us that even without that fortune, each coin holds something priceless. It carries the mark of its time, the labor of hands, the faith of a nation, the quiet persistence of ordinary people who continue to believe and value itself. The screen shows faces of workers leaving the mint, their expressions weary but proud. The camera lingers on a single worker's hands as he wipes sweat from his brow. Those hands, the voice says, have touched more history than most will ever see. Every press of the die is an act of creation, every batch of coins a chapter in the story of continuity. The film transitions through time. Scenes of 2008 fade into the following years: 2009, 2010, 2020. Technology changes, cities expand, money shifts into code and numbers, yet the penny remains. The narrator observes how, against all expectations, it endures. People still count them, still save them, still smile when they find one dated from their birth year. The cent has become something more than currency. It is a small token of identity. It belongs to everyone and to no one. It is not merely American, it is human, a testament to the universal need to hold something real. Soft music begins, a rising orchestral theme of strings and piano. The imagery grows more symbolic, coins lying in fields, in puddles, in open palms. A close-up shows the inscription E pluribus unum out of many, one. The narrator pauses, then speaks slowly. Those words are more than motto, they are prophecy. They describe not only a nation, but the coin itself. Each cent is one among billions, and yet, together, they form a story greater than any single piece. Out of many, one, a symphony of small acts that, combined, create the pulse of civilization. Now the camera returns to the image of Abraham Lincoln, his profile illuminated by a soft glow. The narrator reflects that Lincoln's image has watched over generations, his gaze unchanged even as the world around him transformed. He has seen wars, recoveries, revolutions, and renewals. And through it all, his likeness on the penny has served as a reminder of endurance, not the endurance of power, but of principle. The 2008 cent, minted in a time of crisis, carries that principle into the future, that unity, humility, and persistence still matter. The scene fades to a quiet museum gallery where a single coin is displayed under glass. Visitors walk past, pausing briefly before moving on. One child lingers longer, pressing her face close to the case, fascinated by the gleam of copper. The narrator's voice softens. Perhaps the child will remember this moment. Perhaps she will begin to collect, to learn, to see history in the small. And perhaps one day, she will tell her own story about a penny that changed how she saw the world. That is how history continues, not through monuments, but through curiosity passed quietly from one heart to another. The camera now travels across the country, showing pennies in unexpected places, a sidewalk glint, a desk drawer, a dusty shelf. The narrator reminds us that even when forgotten, these coins remain part of the human landscape. Each one lies waiting, patient, carrying within it the fingerprint of an age. Time will weather their surfaces, fade their shine, blur their edges, but it will not erase their message. The coin says, I was here. I bore witness. I carried a moment of the world within me. The music rises to its final movement. The film cuts between past and present, the molten metal of creation, the gleam of a finished coin, the slow erosion of age. The narrator speaks over it all. What began as metal becomes memory. What began as currency becomes culture. The 2008 cent, worth 1 cent and yet immeasurable in meaning, reminds us that value is not a number stamped on the surface, but a story pressed into time. Every line, every letter, every scratch is a testimony that something once existed, that effort was made, that hope was struck into matter. The last images unfold in a single slow sequence. A coin spins one final time, catching the light, then settles flat. The reflection of a sunrise glows across its surface. The camera zooms in until Lincoln's face fills the screen. The narrator's voice becomes a whisper. Everything fades, but not everything is lost. Some things remain, the sound of a coin dropping, the warmth of copper, the weight of history in the palm of a hand. These are the things that outlast us. The 2008 Lincoln cent is one of them. Small, simple, eternal, the music holds on a single note as the image fades to black. The narrator speaks his final line, soft, almost like a thought rather than a sentence. In a world forever chasing greatness, the smallest things still carry the greatest truth. 1 cent, one story, one moment, a reminder that even the smallest mark of human hands can shine for 1,000 years.